Hello and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content we have no right to speak about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura, and as always, I'm joined by award-winning director Brian Redondo and Savon Jones, aka Captain Bonnie. This is episode 179, and we talk about Captain America Brave New World. We talk about what we think the movie did well and where it fell short. I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to, and well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a refund.
Incredible!
Hello, gentlemen! Welcome back. It's Confidently Wrong with your boys, Wesley, Brian, Savon. Savon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
How's that new Marvel Rivals update?
They buffed Captain America, and I've been going dumb, Wes. I ain't gonna lie to you, pimp. Like, I'm like, oh,
shield throws.
Hey, I didn't even get a text message or nothing yesterday about them hopping on. Like, I just knew they were on, and they were just like in it for hours, and no one said anything in the group text at all.
That's like one of those. Hey, man, if you get on, you gonna see what's shaking.
Yeah, I knew all of you were on.
We have been running. I'm out about that all week. I cleared my schedule.
They're like, yeah,
you guys
we're gonna
have the alarm set for like, oh, it's about to drop.
They had all planned that they were gonna go, like, they were gonna hang out with their girlfriends or wives like ahead of time, Wednesday night, Thursday night, so that when Friday night came around, don't talk to me. You don't exist. I don't exist. They were prepared, fully prepared. They had invested ahead of time so that they could withdraw the emotional
the relationship equivalent of PTO.
That's a good retirement plan.
Yeah,
it's the relationship version of PTO. Just like, hey, look, things happening.
They earned
you gotta
it.
Let me cook.
Yeah, you got to put your hours in and you get your hours out.
Exactly.
Anyways, It's been very fun, Wes.
Nice, Brian. How's the whole New York situation been? Are you guys freezing still?
The New York situation, you know,
what does
since
that
the
mean?
Battle of New York.
Anything.
Is that
Yes.
what you're talking about?
What
Yeah,
the hell
are
does
you
that
guys
even
still
mean?
cleaning up?
We're currently rebuilding Grand Central Station. We're talking about,
Eric
how
Adams
to get more local defenders to be available for any such catastrophes. Norman
That does sound
Osborn has been
familiar.
working with a young person who's sort of like an arachnid.
Several young
hero.
people, in fact.
Yeah, he's like the Drake of New York.
And the gang warfare has popped off in Harlem.
Savon is making the most. That's the exasperated face right there.
Does Savant know what we're talking about?
Yes, I'm laughing at what Brian said.
Okay.
I
He's
threw in
the
a
Drake.
fun reference there.
This episode entirely dedicated to Captain America Brave New World. This is our first Captain America movie since solo movie since Captain America Civil War, and not even low-key, that movie was basically just a mini Avengers movie. So in some ways this is the first Captain America movie since Winter Soldier, which would have been several years before that. Amazing movie, by the way. You should definitely go watch that. This is the first Captain America we get first Captain America film where Anthony Mackie is playing Sam Wilson as Captain America. And the last time we saw Sam Wilson was in the Disney Plus show a few years ago, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Sav, spoiler free as best you can. What do we need to know? Where are we at in kind of the Captain America timeline here?
The main thing you need to know is that it's been multiple years since the conclusion of Endgame, where Tony died, Steve went away, you defeated Thanos, all that good stuff. At this point, they're in the post-blip world. People are back. We're seeing Sam fully realized and existing in the Captain America role since his series Falcon and Winter Soldier. At this point, not too much has happened besides that we know he's Captain America. He's gotten a new suit. Kitted out by the Wakandans who, rock with him partially because of the events of that series. And now it's kind of him as a fully actualized Captain America. At this point, he's out here doing work, doing missions. And that's kind of just where he is going into the plot at this point.
Mostly working with the government, it seems like.
Yeah, he seems to be doing a lot of kind of like how Steve Rogers was in his previous movies. At this point, he kind of exists in like a special agent, work with the Navy SEALs type A strike force doing high risk missions. So
putting the black in Black Ops.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, right? I wasn't even. Point is, he is cooking. He's doing his thing. He's going around doing his Captain America special ops thing behind the scenes, kind of how Steve was when we saw him in the beginning of.
Yeah, it seems like he's handling like terrorism type of things, like, you know, small military engagements, not necessarily handling like cosmic threats or, you know, like world destroying type of things. Although I guess the first one, it's like we're unclear. He's trying to like secure some kind of uh object. We don't even really know what it is. Some kind of object in the beginning of the movie, for the government that was stolen or hijacked or something like that. So
Very similar to the beginning of Winter Soldier, Captain
Yeah.
America, Winter Soldier.
And
Right.
Civil War. Most of these Captain America movies start off with Captain America doing some kind of Captain America shit, which usually involves terrorists and some type of MacGuffin or object of importance.
that's probably most Marvel movies at this point. Some kind of MacGuffin. All right, so spoilers now allowed. If you haven't seen the movie and you would not like to be spoiled in your ears, go ahead and go watch the movie and then come back to us when you get a chance. Spend that $12 to $17 on a movie, and then
I like the way you said movie. Go watch that movie.
So we're back in the latest Captain America. We get a new lead. First impressions, walking away from the theater. How did you feel? Were you excited? Were you like, you know, what was kind of your impression, just overall? Not necessarily like super specific details yet, but I think give us a sense of what you took away from this movie, Sav.
So overall, I walked out the theater like I was entertained. Like I sat through the movie. I didn't walk away feeling like, oh man, that was boring, or oh man, I didn't have a good time. But the biggest thing is that I immediately walked out of the movie. Some movies you have to kind of sit on it for a minute to really kind of marinate on how you feel about certain things. I walked away having enjoyed the movie and being keenly aware of what I specifically didn't like.
All right.
So take that how it is. So like not bad, not sad. Ultimately, I'm glad I got to see the Sam Wilson Captain America do his shit, and there was a lot of things I wanted that the movie absolutely delivered on. But I knew what I didn't like from the moment I walked out the theater.
Sounds good. Brian, I feel like based on what you've kind of already said to us pre-show, you might be going a little bit the other direction almost.
I'm not sure what the other direction from what Savon just said is. Like
it would be like
the other direction
keenly
of
aware
milk
of
toast?
what I didn't like, and there were a few things I enjoyed maybe.
So I went into the movie fully aware that the Metacritic score on this was in the low 40s.
Can't be a slave to the critics though.
No. Nor you know, they don't always get things
Audience
right.
score was good.
However,
score was good.
But I don't care about the MCU audience, right?
I don't care about anybody's opinion but my own.
however, I like if the critical score is like clearly in the below 50 range, I think it's fair to say there's some issues. There's some widespread issues that everybody is calling out. So I went in expecting the worst. I was like, uh-oh, and sorry I drag you to this movie on a random Thursday night. This
even random. This was Valentine's Day.
This is the day before Valentine's Day.
Okay.
I'm not an idiot. All right, I'm not an idiot. So I think actually I was prepared. I was expecting the worst, and I didn't think it was the worst. It was fine.
It wasn't Secret Invasion bad.
I think it was fine.
Absolutely.
But the more that I have marinated on the movie, the more annoyed I feel by all the missed opportunities.
Okay, we'll get there.
That's
a teaser. That's what we in the biz call a teaser.
Yeah, it's sort of how I feel a lot about like some Star Wars stuff. It's like
interesting,
but like it's frustrating. It's frustrating because you want it to be something great, and it just is not.
All right, fair enough. I'm more with Sav. I think I walked away feeling entertained. I didn't think it was a perfect movie. I didn't think it was a movie that everyone has to go out and see. It certainly wasn't, Infinity War, like gripping, you're like gripping your seat, like, oh my God, like I can't believe this, kind of investment in the movie. But I think there's a ton of great stuff, especially in terms of like their action scenes that were just like, oh, this is where Marvel like has always almost always shined and continues to do so here. So there was definitely a lot there, and there was some like good character development, good character like interactions that I enjoyed throughout the movie. So yeah, I mostly enjoyed it, or I mean I did enjoy it. I think mostly it was for me a good movie, with some weaknesses for sure that like notice them as it goes on, but it didn't stop me from enjoying the movie in any way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get into it. What did you enjoy? Let's keep it positive here. We'll start with the positives. Favorite parts, favorite elements, anything that stood out to you as like, oh yeah, that was like super good of them, in terms of movie making, or it could just be something you enjoyed. Brian, we'll let you lead off here.
That I enjoyed.
Something you enjoyed.
So I would say that there was nothing that I felt gave a huge high.
Okay.
So I'm starting with the negatives.
No.
You said answer your question.
There was, to me, there weren't like huge peaks of like, yeah, they fucking hit that, they nailed it. That really delivered. I will say the thing that maybe is closest to that feeling, that I've come to love Marvel stuff for, is probably just the air fighting, with Sam Wilson doing more Hawkeye stuff. Not Hawkeye, Falcon stuff.
Yeah.
Rather than Captain America stuff. He's chasing after missiles. He's flying through jet fighter planes, and trying to prevent a global catastrophe from launching off. And he does some cool things. He slices through a wing of a plane with his own backpack wings, and that was kind of cool. And I think they do a good job of nailing kind of like the speed and just like the coolness factor of him fighting in that way. I didn't think it was like the greatest action scene in the world, but it was fun. It's fun.
Oh, I really dug that particular action scene, but almost all of the fight scenes, I was just like, yeah, like the choreography here is like great. It feels like intense, natural, cool, right? I mean, like part of it is like, do these fights feel cool? And I thought they absolutely did. Like use of the wings, use of the shields. I don't think this is not like a super spoiler, but we already said spoilers were fine. But because the suit and the wings are upgraded with Wakandan tech, in the first Black Panther, Shuri designed the Black Panther suit so that when it took on impact damage, it could store it for a minute and then release it as like a blast, or like more kinetic power. And so his wings do the same thing. He uses them as a shield, or a secondary shield here to like absorb a bunch of, I don't know, bullets or blasts or something, and then is able to release that as a huge, like almost sonic blast out into the enemies and knock them back. And he does it really cool. I thought like the wings came down and kind of folded in front. Just cool stuff. It felt like, what a great use of his kit. I don't know if that was something from the comics that we've seen before. Like I've never read Sam Wilson comics, but it showed, I think, some great imagination somewhere along the lines to how they use the wings, how the shield got integrated, right? I mean, he threw the shield at the missiles. He would throw it at people. Obviously, there's a nice like rebound off the wings, off the wall. Like just cool stuff that's always happening and always like drawing your attention to the fights. So I don't know. I mean, I think it was just like super, super engaging to watch all the action scenes. And I think that was, for me, the biggest highlight, like, was if you like action scenes and you want to go see an action movie, like it's worth seeing this on the big screen to me, just for the fight scenes alone. And just the combos that they can pull off. I think that carried from Falcon and Winter Soldier. I was rewatching that recently just to kind of get ready for this movie. And the fight scenes in that are incredible too. There's too many of them, in fact, but all of them are awesome. I don't know why they needed to have 2 fight scenes in every single episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier, but
that shit dope.
Yeah, they're all good. So I can't fault them for that. They're like, we're good at this, so let's keep doing this. Like, all right, well, do what works, I guess. Even if it doesn't make narrative sense. And then I want to give a big ups to Harrison Ford. Like I was a couple weeks ago when we talked about this, I wasn't sure if that was going to work, like with a recast with a grumpy old man who's, very old at this point. And like, was he going to have the physicality to play it? And it turns out the physicality wasn't even the most important part. It was his like,
yeah, because they have CG.
Well, well, it was more just like the like vulnerability, intenseness, and like sadness that comes through in his performance that I thought actually, if it hadn't been, it could have worked really, really well because of his performance. It worked good because of the performance, but there's some like I think writing things that are weird. But I think Harrison Ford stood out a ton as like, oh damn, like this dude has been doing it for a long time and is still doing it at a pretty high level, and completely different than his like shrinking role, his like grumpy old man roles that he plays sometimes. So I don't know. I thought that he was awesome. I felt like he put a standout performance into this one. Sav, what did you enjoy about this movie?
Funny enough, I can echo a lot of what you said. I enjoyed the
Hey, we're on the same page.
Yeah, I enjoyed the action sequences quite a bit. I think Sam, Captain America, has a interesting power set, and they did a good job of showcasing and being really creative with how they flex that. He has this weird mix of, he was always more maneuverable than Iron Man or something when you're like flying, right? The wings gave him, he was always the best flyer probably out of the heroes we saw. Never was a heavy hitter, but now he's got the shield. He uses Red Wing, which Red Wing's always been around in the movies, but they've progressively made Red Wing more and more badass, right? He's using it to infiltrate and scout things out and fly the shield back to him when he was surfing on the missile. And I'm with you, man. All the action sequences are dope, and I'm glad that they kind of, the nature of him being able to fly lets him be able to do some heavier lifting than what Steve did maybe in his movies instead, which maybe that balances out the super serum part, right? He doesn't have the super soldier thing, but he can fly, so that lets him do
well,
stuff
they confine
Steve,
Steve to like indoor spaces typically, right? To give him more to like bounce off of and do and kind of limit.
Both movies put their respective Cap in their element to show what they can do best, and I think they really set him up for success on that. And really, all of his like actual Falcon scenes. Funny enough, just the whole, and honestly, I enjoyed the whole dynamic between like, you know, the fact they brought back Isaiah. We all love Isaiah, but the dynamic between Isaiah, Sam, and even young boy Joaquin, I think Taurus. I like that vibe. Like young boy Joaquin, I was kind of on the fence about him. I was like, I rock with him. I thought he was fun. He was charismatic. I liked his techie, you know, it's kind of like not the most original, you know, the plucky, you know, sidekick, but I liked his energy. I liked his vibe. I liked that he was real techie and useful. I enjoyed their on-screen rapport and like found that to be, you know, entertaining. And then a smaller thing, and again, this is biased because I'm pretty open about being a Sam Wilson biased fan, but like, I like that they lean into Sam being a counselor and they try to continuously bring that up with his character. I actually think that's a very cool element of a character who's military, has been through stuff, and ultimately his calling is a counselor, and he tries to leverage that. Like, just like, remember how in Harley Quinn we enjoyed how Harley would use her psychology background as like a character thing, and that was like a cool element of her character in the show. I like that they at least are trying to do the same with Sam of like, yeah, he a badass, but like he's a counselor. He's going to try and connect and humanize with you. And like, that's part of what makes him an interesting Captain America. And, you know, that whole differentiation of like, he's something you can, you know what, Steve's something that you can be inspired by. Sam's something you can aspire to be. It's kind of hokey and cheesy, but I do like that that's them trying to at least differentiate these two Captain Americas and why they're different. So I don't know. I enjoyed those things, my Sam Wilson bias aside.
I did appreciate that scene at the end of the movie between Sam and Joaquin. Joaquin's in the hospital bed and says what you just said, right? Like, you're somebody that I can aspire to be. And, you know, like, and of course, the subtext for both of them is like, you know, we're black and brown people in America, and we need to have role models and believe that we can become something beyond what mainstream society tells us, and that's why you and I are important for each other.
Yeah, and this is
where I actually appreciated that scene.
Yeah, and this is where it gets tricky, right? Because I know people will hear that and think, "Oh, that's kind of cheesy, that's whatever." But like, at least from my experience, it's real, whether you like it or not. Like, even if I don't necessarily embrace that, I have personally felt the pressure of like, "Oh man, I'm one of the only black dudes in this leadership position." Even though it's not as open as, all right, I got to make sure I handle my shit so I don't, you know, so I don't F this up for other people down the line. You can still feel that and like in the background of things where like you're in a space of majority white people and you're one of the only black folks in a, you know, in education West where it's a lot of black people who you're serving, there is like, whether you like it or not, there is a little bit of like a, yo man, I'm the only person who looks like this sitting at the table. I got to make sure I handle my shit so that there's somebody at the table. Like, it sounds cheesy and it maybe doesn't feel realistic if you can't relate to it, but like, yo man, I've talked to plenty of people, especially in academic field, who that's real shit. So,
Yeah.
you know, and we'll talk more about that when we talk about the deeper things in the movie, but that was one of those things that it's like, you ain't gotta like it, but he not lying. There's no lies were told in that scene in space.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about the things we enjoyed. Now we get to, you know, like we'll give a little bit of what maybe didn't quite work out as well as we had hoped, or what it could have been. Anything that you weren't a fan of. So I think for me, there was a lot of things that I couldn't put my finger on what wasn't working. Like, there was just like certain parts that just felt like, did they explain this well enough to like get to this point? Like,
Absolutely not, Wes. I don't even know what you're referring to, but they didn't.
You know, like, so, but I have that in movies and TV shows sometimes just naturally. So, you know, I was not sure if this was just a me problem or if this was like the movie didn't quite get there all the time. So I definitely think like there were just some things that didn't quite flow or like feel motivated, or they had skipped some steps to get there. And I didn't mind so much that some of the things were kind of silly. Like, I mean, you know, the fact that like they were mind controlled and in the White House and all these people came together to like do this attack or whatever. And it was like kind of just out of left field, or like, oh, and it happened to be that Isaiah had problems with his phone and was like, oh, I got to look at my phone because I don't know how to use phones in 2025 or whatever, you know, like
that's an old man.
Yeah, that's an extremely realistic statement.
Who was imprisoned?
Yeah,
that old man that was imprisoned.
I guess so. That didn't. Yeah, so I'm saying that like didn't bother me, even though it's like a little silly. It's just like, oh, okay, like you really needed him to like look at it at that exact moment, though, right? Like your plan really depends on a lot happening here. Some of that stuff just felt like weird, but I think the fact that the leader was sort of like the main villain, right, was. He got sidelined too much, and we didn't really see how he came to be so I don't know what the right word is. He was so like upset at Ross, right, that he needed his vengeance, and
yes,
and all of that,
and he needed to embarrass him as a form of vengeance,
right? Like all of that happened off screen.
That was fine. I thought that was cool. I was rocking with that.
I just want him to be embarrassed.
Yes,
I'm gonna ruin his press conference.
Yes, you must not understand what beef is. That is way better tearing someone down than killing them. Respect to the leader. That's some real, man. That was some real
You're
hater
gonna like
shit.
Torture him or something. It's like, he was like, I'm just gonna get you angry.
Well,
I'm gonna turn myself in and phone in an angry message to you. Like, come on.
Yeah. So that part was a little bit odd, I think, in terms of like to me how he did that. And but I wish we would have seen like. The disconnect was in this movie, Ross is actually much different than we've seen him in the past. He's not as power hungry. He's actually trying to, what he says, do the right thing for the American people and to lead them well and to try and win back his daughter's respect, right? Because he had lost his daughter's respect given his like power hungry moves in the past.
He's so sympathetic in this movie.
Yeah, and that 180 on him was hard to figure out. Like, was he actually struggling with this like change of identity and change in purpose? It didn't seem like it. It seemed like he was already fully like realized as this new version of himself, which like then it made it hard to reconcile with the fact that like the leader was just absolutely hellbent on like destroying him, because we hadn't seen where the leader had actually been screwed over, right? And that he too much exposition.
You don't think they explained exactly why he's like his beef with Ross? I think
they explained it by talking about it, but like it was just
which is not convincing because it's just talk.
It was just so much
exposition.
Talking. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was something that actually did need to show us at some point, or like to flashback to, or I don't know. I mean, it should have been a previous movie. Like
it kind of was a previous movie called The Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton. But nobody remembers that movie, and Captain America was trying so hard to, make you remember the events of that.
Yeah.
By just like giving you data dumps, basically.
That's what I did not have an issue with those elements.
It was a
Because
lot
you have a memory like an elephant, man. Like,
it was a lot of exposition, but we also didn't get to see the part where he was like, he was trapped. Like, right, basically, he says like, I was imprisoned and I couldn't get out of this, camp, whatever, Echo 1, and I was, like, I was just made to do his bidding, and all of that happened in between that first movie for the Incredible Hulk and this movie, but like. We're
30
already,
movies ago.
Yeah, but but it all happened in between. Like, none of that stuff was actually in the movie. Right. This part where he was trapped and doing his bidding. Like, all of that stuff wasn't
just say it.
Yeah, he just
you
says
have
like
to accept it.
we saw his lab that he was in. Like, okay,
I didn't have a problem with that. I think not everything has to be show. Some stuff for me, what drove home the why he had the beef so intent was, do y'all know what the leader design looks like kind of like in other iterations?
Yes, from Marvel Snap.
Yeah, of course.
Big tall head.
So his whole bit is that he's supposed
it's
to
like
be
if
smart.
Kid and Play. Which one is it? Kid, right?
Play.
Kid has.
I think it's Play.
Hair. It's like that, except instead of hair, it's actually still his skull.
So y'all know at least that like the leader's whole bit is that he's supposed to be smart the way Hulk is strong, right? Like, that's his whole thing.
Yeah,
and
he was kind of a dimwit, and so the gamma radiation made him like opposite, right?
I can't remember that piece. I just know he's super smart instead of super strong. But like for me, I guess what sold me on there's lots of like, this is more verbal exposition of why this beef is. I guess what sold me on it and drove it home was the leader normally looks grotesque, but still kind of like a little bit more suave or put together. And this version, just the fact that he had the messed up eye and the brain, and then he talks about how Ross purposely up the gamma dosage on him and purposely mutated him. I guess for me, I was okay with the amount of tell they did, because when they show what he looked like and you see this is directly because of Ross's act. This isn't like it got in my cut and now I look like this and he took advantage. Like, no, I look like this because he explicitly abused me in captivity and this is the result of it. And even though they kind of was meant to be a funny, it was like, damn. When I saw him in the movie, I was like, damn. Yeah, if a dude did that to me, like, okay, I'm like, all right, I'm sold on why you. Honestly, the moment I saw the leader's design, I was sold on why he was beefed out with Ross, especially when he said Ross specifically up the dosage. To me, that was enough and bought me on. Okay, cool.
Okay,
if an MF did that to me, I am completely crashing out. I don't give a damn who get hurt. He don't even just get the messed up brain; he got the messed up eye too. So it's not even like he's not even cool or gangster. And then he's a computer slave, algorithm slave, basically. Nah, man. I get why y'all feel the way y'all did. That sold me on why. I was like, okay, villains' motivations, completely get it. All right, what's next?
I think you're able to connect a lot of dots. Like,
did y'all not feel that way when you saw the
data,
design?
You take that piece of data, but I think what the movie fails to do is actually put the emotion behind those pieces of data, right? Like, in prison, I look like this. Where's the emotion that connects all of that to make you really feel why he might be, perpetrating all this stuff?
Maybe him crying or breaking down or more just like,
or give him more screen time.
Okay.
Show, like, make him more dastardly, like something. And then for him to one, feel all that anguish just to try to embarrass Ross as payback. Weird. Also, him being in prison for that period of time or that length of time, but he's like an inhuman genius who can calculate all the odds and possibilities of everything that happens, maybe much in the way that Doctor Strange does during Endgame or Infinity War, right? Like, if he can calculate all of that, he doesn't expect Captain America to come and ruin his plans. He doesn't think some superhero or Avenger is going to...
Oh, no. Now I'm like, he could have got out of the prison then, too.
Yeah, and he was out of the prison, too. Like, as soon as they go and investigate, he's not in chains. So he's like running around like a little gremlin. Like, come on. what are we talking about here? We're supposed to believe this guy is a super mastermind? Like, no.
I didn't have an issue.
He turns himself in.
I didn't have an issue with that.
for no reason.
He wasn't trying to break out until Ross reneged on his thing. So all that was in like a several month span, although he'd been poisoning him for a hot little minute. But like him making this evil plan,
exactly.
the whole evil plan thing wasn't really though until he was like, all right, I'm not letting you out. That's when he was like, all right, man, yo, F you. Now I'm about to, that wasn't, you know what? I'll wait till it's my turn because I have my issues, but like that was
That's not it.
That was
All right.
definitively not one of them.
This isn't even one of my main issues.
This wasn't my issue.
I'm just helping Wes out.
Good God.
The other thing that someone said was that I saw on YouTube. I don't know. I think this was who is this? Double Television or Double Trouble, something like that. This group that does a podcast every daily podcast. They were like, they put Red Hulk in all of the promotional material.
They spoiled their own movie,
right?
Yeah,
And then
okay.
they saved it for the last 10 minutes of the movie, and it was like, well, wait, if we all knew that Red Hulk was coming, Red Hulk should have been in there way earlier as a thing, right? As a force to be reckoned with, and as a challenge for Sam to overcome, much earlier. And they couldn't do it. I don't know. Like that was sort of the issue of having Harrison Ford come in later into the production, because then they needed to give him more screen time, right? Because like you can't hire Harrison Ford to be in your movie for 20 minutes. You got to have him be in the movie from the beginning and be in equal importance to Anthony Mackie. But then it sidelines the leader, which is the person that should have had
give me the rock,
more
coach.
of the screen time.
Give me the rock. All
right,
please.
It's your turn. Here you go. Are you going to rebut us, or are you going to talk about what you didn't like?
Well, I'm gonna talk about what I didn't like.
Okay.
Yeah. So
You're up.
My biggest issue with this movie was, and you know, again, Kendall and I had a good conversation about why we thought that was the case. And Kendall
shout
had
out
some good
Kendall.
points. Yeah, friend of the show, Kendall. The biggest issue with the movie is that I think in my final score, I took a full point off because the movie is not on the same landing. No, not even that. The movie's not on the same page as its marketing. Like there's nothing worse than a movie that the marketing and what the movie itself is supposed to be are not on the same page.
Say more.
Absolutely.
What do you mean?
And like, okay, so here's the thing. This movie, if you watch it without the context of any trailers, all of the stuff of Red Hulk actually lands really well, and actually I think is a really dope buildup because they plant the movie itself in a vacuum actually does a good job of subtly building up to Red Hulk and planting the seeds to where if you're a comics fan, you'll piece it together because he is Red Hulk in the comics. Boy, if you don't really know, you legitimately, I think, and they even have some good fake out moments, like on the ship where he almost hulks out and it's a fake out moment. And I'm like, all of that with zero context.
His leg started to go, right?
You saw his leg expanding. Exactly.
Imagine it down.
If you're not a Marvel fan, you would be really
Imagine
surprised.
how sick all of that would have been if we just didn't know from the beginning that Red Hulk was going to be in the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that absolutely. And so we're talking about this movie as a whole. There's like a lot of the things I can say I didn't like ultimately would be small potatoes in comparison to, they handled the Red Hulk stuff very well. And that was a good jaw drop. And that could be up there in terms of just MCU moments that are like, oh shit, that completely caught me off guard with my pants down. That could have been up there. But here's the problem, and it becomes like almost like...
You watch this movie with your pants down?
Y'all don't?
Bro.
Y'all don't?
That seems illegal.
But
you got to be comfortable when you watch a movie.
But here's like the catch. Here's where it becomes a challenge. If they didn't, and maybe they wouldn't have, but like larger American audiences weren't gonna go see a movie with a Black Captain America as like the lead draw. And that's not the movie's fault. That's not Anthony Mackie's
really?
fault.
You think that's why they did it?
100%. There's not a
what an indictment of America if that's actually why that
Are you
happened.
living in America right now?
Dude, even if you just look at reviews, you know how many bad faith reviews are just already.
No, I didn't read the reviews.
My point
they're
is,
going to be toxic.
But my point is that is a reflection of the culture and people around the movie, which that is relevant. If people are review bombing it and it has reasons to do it, race and whatnot, then for even things the Anthony Mackie says the same stuff that what your boy Chris Evans said about the American stuff. You can see double standards that clearly manifest of. Anthony Mackie says something that's about critical of America. It's not seen in the same way as Chris Evans talking about their character role and, the weird relationship of the character and then the actual state of America the last, I'd say 10, 15 years, right? So All that's a thing, but
The
there's
last
not a,
400
there's
years,
not a,
whatever.
yeah, but there's not a doubt in my mind that from a just movie money making perspective, they knew. I mean, because even when Sam got the shield handed to him to Steve, there were plenty of folks who said, actually, I think Bucky should get the shield. Actually, I think Bucky would be, that was a very noticeable discourse. And again,
Yeah.
it's this weird meta of like, this is weird real life commentary / this is how it was in the comics
And
too.
Bucky has had the shield in the comics, so that wasn't like crazy out of left field.
Yeah, but the idea of, but even if you just watch any of these MCU movies, you know damn well Bucky is not the person who would be taking up the mantle. And even in the movies, they keep reinforcing Sam's the right person, but there's still this audience backlash that is never going to be quite accepting that the movie, again, and the series is very, very aware of. All that to say, a movie about a black Captain America as the lead was not about to be the largest draw to larger white America. Sorry, nobody wants to hear it. It's the truth. Like, frankly, a lot of black superhero films have that same challenge working against them. And, again, my real unpopular opinion is that the only way, they had to do Afro-futuristic Africans to get, audiences to want to see, like, even Black Panther, a movie where the lead villain is a black American, and he was right, and he still had to be like, all right, you can't be too right. So my critique is also specifically in like about black American stories and characters that don't shy away from it. That's a hard sell. And they knew that and said, all right, what's going to get asses into seats? All right, Red Hulk. And that alone, for some people, plenty of folks.
I think it was Harrison Ford was going to get people in seats, not Red Hulk.
I don't
because no one knows who Red Hulk is.
Dude, young people are not going to see movies because of Harrison Ford, respectfully.
Doesn't have to be young people, though. It could be 50-year-old, white guys.
It doesn't matter that you don't know who Red Hulk is. It just matters that there's a Hulk.
Yeah, either way, you see
red,
the trailer,
and then it's like,
and now you're like,
oh,
it was a Hulk.
Okay.
It's red.
Right.
What's going on?
That's fair. But
they drew those things in.
I was thinking you were trying to say like, oh, there had to be a white character in it. It's like,
no, but I think that's true too. But more so, Sam Wilson as the lead, because. Okay, here's another way of looking at it. Think about Deadpool and Wolverine, which, by the way, as I look back, that movie ages more poorly every day that goes by. It kind of comes off. I think it comes off as kind of childish nostalgia bait with like actually kind of sophomore writing with a lot of like childish writing with the swearing. I'm like, oh, this is like a middle schooler wrote this. But the movie didn't undercut its own hype by, imagine if we just knew about all those cameos in the movie going into the movie. That would have undercut what blew people the F away, rather than you're in the theater and you just out of no idea see Elektra, Blade, all these Fox characters. They kept that under wraps, and that was what elevated a movie that, in hindsight, otherwise was kind of whatever, but it just knocked it up a notch. This Captain America movie did the opposite, where they had a really dope twist that the movie narratively builds up and actually like builds up to fairly well, considering all the writing stuff. Like, they did that well. The first scene, he's popping the pills that are going to ultimately be, key to the Red Hulk twist. But you would, as a viewer, you would be like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'm not going to think too much about it. Or,
we all knew. We went
into the movie.
Like, oh, those pills are going to make them into.
We went into the movie waiting for Red Hulk rather than being surprised by Red Hulk. And the movie didn't know that from the marketing because they weren't acting like it. And then on top of that, the Red Hulk finale wasn't that long. And it's unfortunate because it was actually good for what we did get. But I'm like, yo, man, if the leader's whole plan is to destroy his legacy by having him Hulk out and destroy all this shit, I think they needed to like let him rage out and destroy stuff a little bit more to drive home, hey, man.
He did destroy the White House.
Yeah, but like it was quick. It was so fast. The whole sequence was so fast.
Well, and then they went to this secluded island with no extras and no people and
and like
a lack of budget. Yeah.
Lots of cherry blossoms.
Yeah, lots of cherry blossoms.
I just think it had that destruction going on for maybe 5-10 more minutes. And the marketing didn't tell us from the beginning to expect Red Hulk because that was basically their lead draw. I think that alone would have elevated this movie like a full point for me.
Gotcha.
And any other flaws in the movie would have been far easier to ignore because there's this really dope thing they did well that is really engaging the audiences, but they undercut their own hype. And I think they undercut their own hype hard enough to where now other cracks or flaws in the movie that would have been actually, in my opinion, very easy to ignore. Now you can't ignore because there's no shining like, hey, y'all did this one thing so well that I can ignore other minor issues I had. Instead, this was the lead thing that was clearly supposed to be our main draw. you undercut your hype, and now all I can do is focus on other things I didn't like. And that, it's complicated because this is where filmmaking is complicated and business intersects with culture and all that stuff. And they had to rewrite the character because she was Israeli. And I don't know. I guess I'm a little frustrated because why did this movie have to have all these rewrites because of the themes when in the previous Captain America movies, Nazis infiltrate the government and that wasn't controversial, but an Israeli character is. I don't know. Maybe I'm out of pocket with it, but like why was Nazis in the government not a big deal? And that wasn't a need to rewrite how the character works, but this is... Like, to what extent do y'all think the political climate affected this movie, and is that fair to the movie?
I think you are probably accurate. They definitely, the marketing on this movie feels desperate.
Oh, right? They needed asses in seats. They were ready to make their money, and they were like, first things first, before we do anything else, how can we... Because if they had kept it a secret, people might have just not gone to see the movie in the first place. And then it's like and I don't know, what do you do with that?
They have billed this movie as a Red Hulk movie more so than Captain America. Like, just think about like the posters or the ads that you've seen. It's more about Red Hulk than even seeing any of Sam Wilson, right?
Yeah, it's the Shield and Red Hulk.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Shield. Yeah. Like, is Sam in this? Like, who even knows?
It's very colorblind marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have a, like, you guys know the world that we live in right now. There is an orange Hulk who's tearing up the White House and pulling back on all this stuff, and everybody that's behind him are basically the Illuminati.
With a weird mutant behind the scenes pulling his strings. A little too on the money, a little too on the nose for us.
There's a leader. But yeah, just like at like all institutions, not just government ones, pulling back on DEI, right? Or, whatever you want to call that. And like, that is just this like blanket label that gets applied to anything with,
woke,
anything that's not white mainstream. Right.
Yeah.
And so that, that means, black leading male. They're like, oh, we're gonna pull. I think we gotta pull back from this because corporations are saying like, oh, we think the zeitgeist is now moving away from all of that. So should we, right? Like the NFL also change or remove like the end racism, taglines that they had on the end zones and helmets and stuff because they don't think it's popular. It's not appealing anymore to a widespread audience. So they're like, I think it's actually, we got to do the reverse now. And I think we're seeing that in a lot of mainstream media type things, including the marketing for Captain America.
Brian, you haven't said what you didn't like about the movie, what your main thing was. I'm going to give you a chance, so go ahead.
How much time do we have?
We got other things we want to talk about, so try to keep it short.
There's so much that is messed up in this movie.
Pick one or two.
Oh my God.
I at least got my part out my chest. I got my 2 cents out.
I totally forgot that Sabre was on my list of things. Like, did she need to be in the movie at all? She served 0 points.
They wanted to do more with her, and clearly they downplayed it because of the characters' backgrounds, and they just couldn't. They clearly didn't know what the hell they wanted to do with that character, which...
Same with the head of the Secret Service detail. Like, nice to see her, but she had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
And the movie is kind of rife with those kind of problems. Like Serpent, Giancarlo Esposito, who's great. I love seeing him. And actually the street fight between him and Sam is kind of cool. But like that's just more stuff. They're just trying to like seed characters, for fan service, for future things, and for whatever, and it completely takes away from the narrative cohesion of the movie. You're just like looking at these glaring sore thumbs, like what is this doing here? And and even I would argue, that detracts from some of the things that could have been awesome, right? Isaiah Bradley, Sam Wilson continuing along their relationship now that he's wearing this mantle would make a really excellent story. And you can see that there's some of the bones are there where they're talking about like whether he's going to be a puppet. Are you going to be a puppet for the man, or are you going to stand up for what's right and true?
And the training
And
montage
then they
was
just left
sick.
it alone.
And the
Yeah,
random training was a good people moment.
Oh yeah, like actually, Isaiah Bradley making attack on the president was kind of great. Um, I I'm surprised he failed. I also didn't think it had to be like all these other people also attempting it. Like, wouldn't it have made a better movie if the leader was so sneaky and dastardly that they really went hard on making you believe like that Isaiah Bradley was the villain in this, and like I don't know. I just feel like it was a missed opportunity to do something interesting. And then like Sam goes and talks to the president about it, but like they're they both seem kind of nice to each other. Like what happened to the Ross that we knew, right? Like why have Harrison Ford be so sympathetic in this? Like do they even have an antagonistic relationship? Like you don't get a sense of any real conflict that poses a challenge for Sam to really deal with. He in a way I felt like Anthony Mackie, Sam Wilson is kind of sleepwalking through this movie, unfortunately. And I don't think it's of his own doing. I think it's a result of the character that they wrote for him, which didn't allow for, you know, any of his personality to pop off on screen except for one short cameo scene with Bucky where suddenly like he suddenly has some crackle to him and there's sparks flying on the screen. Otherwise he's just so ho hum throughout the whole movie. He's not really dealing with the moral ambiguities of his position. Like it's just like a lot of talking and he's going from place to place. There's also another opportunity here to talk about him as a hero that doesn't have superpowers, and they mention it but they don't show it. It's like at least have him get nicked up in a fight. Like he gets stabbed twice in the fight with Giancarlo Esposito, and like they retcon it within the movie itself. They're like, oh yeah, you were wearing you were wearing Teflon, weren't you? And that's why you weren't apparently injured in that fight. You got stabbed in the gut, dude. And we're talking about how you didn't take the serum, but you don't feel it. Like, come on. Like, it was such a missed opportunity. They could have had this whole other thing where Sam is like kind of like out of his depths and trying to figure out how to be the lead Avenger of this whole MCU. But instead it's
Brian
just
wants
like
black men to take more beatings on screen. I see.
no,
I think that's what
I
the show
want to
is
see
for.
him struggle, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I hear what you're saying. I was just like trying to headline that, in a really terrible way.
See,
You're an
I
ass.
thought we did see him struggle.
like
No.
he's not
He
really
wasn't just-
struggling. He's
Did
just
he break an arm? Did he need medical care ever?
no.
No.
He goes on a road trip right after. He packs his bags as soon as he's stabbed, and he will like
Are we
walks
really
in and
getting
he's
worked up
fine.
over that when these people be taking injuries in these movies all the effing time and they are still on?
Apparently,
to the next
Sam
scene?
doesn't. Sam doesn't need the serum. Apparently, he doesn't take the serum because he doesn't need it.
Lots of non-superhuman characters take ass whoopings or get shot and all this stuff or get thrown from a building and then they
But
still
he
do
doesn't.
stuff later.
That's what
in the
I'm
movie.
saying. I'm saying if they're going to talk about him being a different kind of Captain America, let's see it. Let's see him really be different from the Chris Evans, from, wielding the shield. Like the only difference really is that one, he's got wings, and two, he's got less to say and do, right? Like
What the hell did Steve have to say? All Steve was saying was the same generic friendship, freedom. We've got this. Like I'm not saying the shit in this was great, but they've been doing this in all the Captain America movies. My issue isn't that they did it in this movie. They just did it.
This movie, dude. When you see this movie and compare it to previous Captain America movies, like I hate to make this comparison, but I think you can just feel it, right? I've never liked Steve Rogers, never liked Captain America as a character. But when you see Chris Evans in those movies, he's got kind of like there's like charisma behind like I can do this all day, like, and then he goes and shows it, right? Like he does some cool Captain America stuff. In this movie with Sam Wilson, he's like, I don't know, like he never gets an opportunity to really like show his stuff and like be charismatic and be somebody you want to root for, he feels like a side character to his own movie. And like that is such a shame. And then, only for him to like have the one like, counselor moment with the Red Hulk at the very end, which is like so. I don't know. It just feels like so unearned. So my
the
problem
other
with the
movies
movie,
be doing that shit. I was just talking with Kendall. Fucking Cap, Power of Friendship, Bucky and Winter Soldier. He got his ass bust and was like, "You're my friend, Bucky. We're friends together."
But at least in that,
and
you
then
believe
suddenly
that they're friends.
and then suddenly
You know
the brainwashed cyber assassin's like, "Oh yeah, I guess we friends. Yeah, I guess that changes everything, despite my programming and decades of killing and all this shit." I've never liked the power of friendship shit in this movie, but I'm not going to pretend like that was acceptable in previous movies too, as if this is a new thing. Captain America and all these superheroes taking licks that they should not have walked away from, all this stuff, and then power of friendship and never been. I mean, look, we could talk about Guardians 1 power of friendship shit, but like,
I love it.
Look,
I mean, like, I agree. It's a hokey trope, but I think what they successfully do with the other Captain America movies is that all of that is like properly seeded and told narratively. Like, you can accept these things because we've seen that they have a friendship, and they clearly have chemistry together. In this movie, Sam has like almost like no opportunity to have chemistry on screen with anybody. Short of that one scene with Bucky, right? And you're like, oh, these two are great together. Why don't we have more of that? And one scene with Isaiah Bradley.
We had a whole show of it
through the glass. Yeah, they should do that in the movie. Like,
then people gonna be saying, "Why are we getting more of this? It's giving us more of the same thing." You didn't like his. I enjoyed his on-screen chemistry with Joaquin Torres, the younger Falcon.
I think Joaquin sucks.
So we're just diametrically opposed. He's a newer character. What the?
He's not funny.
Oh, I thought he was. I like this. Oh, okay, that's where we disagree. I rock with his character.
No way.
He a young boy.
Example. He's just like.
He's a young boy. He said, "Yo, he's inspired by Falcon."
He's too old to be a young boy.
He does nothing. I think Sam would be such a much better character, actually, if it was just him and Isaiah, right? Like, Isaiah is his go-to guy.
Yeah.
Sam walks a lonely path because only he knows the burden of the position that he's in, and that he's got to struggle. He really should have had a very antagonistic relationship with the president. That should have been clear. There should have been some clear moral quandaries for him to wrestle with. And he should have got hurt in some battles so that when he does succeed, as an audience, we're like, yes, my man did it. He overcame. He is Captain America. Like, that's, I think that's what you want out of the movie. And that is what they do not deliver at all.
Do you think they
thought? I think you're right. I think you're right.
Do you think they delivered that in Falcon and Winter Soldier and they didn't feel like they needed to do that again?
No, because that show also went off the rails for very similar reasons, right? Like, they're just trying to like cram a lot of stuff into it.
Yeah, but that's where he like takes ownership of being Captain America, right? Like, you see him have to like
for the first time, right?
Shield,
this is at a different level.
This
is at a different level. This is like, okay, now he's dealing with Ross. Ross wants to start the Avengers. Yeah. We got this whole adamantium thing. There are world powers involved. Suddenly the stakes are a lot grander, right?
Okay.
And it felt like an opportunity to level up Sam and properly put him in this mantle. And
womp womp.
What we got was cherry blossoms.
I guess I just felt like there was enough struggle for Sam already with him wanting to accept the role and feeling right for the role and getting the shield and all that stuff that happened from in-game leading up to this. I guess for me, I had enough of, I feel like I got my feel of, okay, Sam trying to come into his own, figure out what does it mean, why does he want to do it. The fact that he got the backlash,
he knows he wants to do it.
The fact that he got the backlash to me was a different type of struggle than what Steve would have had as Captain America, which are two different types of struggles. For Steve, it was, physically being weak and also being in a different time. I don't know. I thought
was
Sam's
there backlash? Did Sam get backlash in this movie?
Well, I'm talking about more as like the meta thing of. I mean, first of all, the president himself just straight up tells him, "Hey, man, you ain't Steve." Like he's still coming at him with that. He still has plenty of characters who still like Isaiah, who got mixed feelings about the. It's clearly not like a come and go thing. Granted, he still got a lot more clout because in the bar, the streets love me. Like, yeah, this one's on you, and people. But I guess for me, I felt like Sam's struggle for Captain America was the even him feeling worthy of the role piece and willing to live up to that legacy part. And we got to talk about that and even touch on it again in this movie. I'm okay with that being one of his. Like, I'm okay with that being his struggle. I don't need to see him getting his ass beat throughout the whole movie for.
We just got to know that he's human, right? Like,
I guess I didn't, especially because he was fighting Hulk. It was very clear, hey man, you ain't finna beat this dude. Like, you ain't finna beat this dude ass whooping style. So like, what's it gonna be? I think for me that was my. All right, you're not gonna brute force this guy, and he even said, man, I should have took the serum, man. It's some bullshit. But like to me, that was his. All right, pimp, you a counsel, and at least I can be more accepting of that than a Steve Rogers power of friendship speech. At least the counselor is a damn.
Right?
Which again,
I like the
that.
counseling angle. I wish we saw it more.
Agree.
Like,
couldn't agree more. But there is a point where
see him employ that as his go-to strategy, where he is he's somebody trying to make amends.
No. I genuinely
want to see him kick some ass. What are you talking about?
He is going to kick
ass. The shield and the wings. Like, I don't want him talking people down off the ledge every time.
He's going to kick ass, but but I do agree with Brian. That's a cool, like, we talk about ways.
This is America. We deal with things with fists, bro.
But
that's how we settle things.
But I agree, Brian. Like, and this is where I'm like, I feel that they tried, and this is where I think, again, marketing, and also this movie obviously suffered from a thing I talk about with all kinds of Marvel movies. Regardless of whether I think the movie is good or bad, it needs to have someone's artistic stamp on it. Even Love and Thunder, for being probably the worst Marvel movie I've seen arguably ever.
At least it had personality. Right?
And this wasn't it was a bad personality. Let's be clear.
I don't want to hang out with that person.
That's one of those, you are a shitty person, but you are you have self-actualized in a way that a lot of us haven't. It's a very shitty self-actualization, but hey man, you know who you are for better or for worse. In this case, for worse.
Are you talking about Taika Waititi or
damn right? Yes.
I thought you meant Thor at first. I was like,
no. The movie as a whole, it was a bad movie, and it's worse than this movie. But it had more creative. But it had a creative stamp, and I think that would have been like the little things that would have like really
less of that creative stamp.
No, this movie needed more creative stamp, and Brian, that's to the point of a lot of writers. Right. That's where you feel it. Well, you feel it more, but I like Counselor Sam. I like that. That's a way to differentiate him from Steve. I think people, and I think they're doing a solid job of differentiating. Steve never was worried about whether he was worthy of being Captain America. Sam has to deal with the stuff around that. That's just already an immediate character difference. One's superpowered, one isn't. One deals, even, his mentor is like dealing with the legacy of the racist elements of Captain America with Isaiah. Like, I think that they're trying. But again, all of the other stuff we talked about with this movie got in the way of what I thought were some very earnest attempts to do some of the things we're talking about. Because the idea of him being a counselor and leaning into that is great. Because even Isaiah's like, hey man, don't pull that counselor shit on me. Like, they were clearly really trying to drive home, hey, this dude does, and like that's actually really commendable, right? Of a former war vet who did all this military shit and then decided counseling is my actual calling. Like, I like that as being the backdrop of a character, somebody being Captain America. But yeah, like we said, I think, at least in my opinion, I think social issues and politics and marketing really got in this movie's way. And there were still things that the movie would have stumbled on, but I think those things hurt the movie more than anything else. And it's unfortunate.
We've been sort of dancing around the idea of Sam Wilson's blackness. We've mentioned it here and there, but actually want to just now kind of actually tackle it directly. When we first started previewing this movie a few weeks ago, I had said, I don't want this movie to shy away from Sam Wilson's blackness or to try and make it consumable by greater, broader, white America, whatever, right? And I want them to actually have them deal with Sam Wilson's blackness and confront his identity head on. And I didn't want them to just do like a little head nod here or there, or to be like, yeah, like fight on, brother, like just just like silly like bullshit, like dealing with race and dealing with him being a black guy in America. I don't know. What did you think about how the movie tackled race? Brian, what did you think?
Yeah, I was thinking about that conversation that we had while watching the movie, and I felt disappointed. I did think the movie was more just nodding or like alluding to like these interesting qualities or issues that I would expect, Sam Wilson, Black Captain America, with Isaiah Bradley, whose whole character is about, racism and the awful places that it can go. I felt like the movie kind of sidestepped a lot of those issues. Like
Because none of his challenges were
introduced.
about him being black.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's kind of introduced. They sort of like give verbiage to it, but then it's not explored at all. And it has like almost no bearing on the plot or how anything
It has zero bearing on the plot. Let's just be very, very clear.
Yeah, exactly.
This movie,
well, other than Harrison Ford saying you're not Steve Rogers, which like maybe was about that, but like could have also not been about that.
I mean, I
just wish they went for it.
Yeah, right? They didn't go for it. But Brian, like I said, we knew from the beginning that they weren't even sure that this movie would be able to get butts in the seats. So they never had faith in that. Like, if your leading move in like the first teaser trailers is Red Hulk in the teaser trailers,
yeah, but you thought this way too. You thought they would be able to deal with it, especially since they put Isaiah Bradley front and center.
So here's my thing. So I thought I had some time to think about this. I didn't expect them to have the whole plot be revolving around race, because like if they're gonna do a global conspiracy plot, whether you like it or not, that just doesn't lend itself to the whole resource war type stuff. Like a story about race isn't gonna really fit into a resource war of what they made this about, this arms race. But I think, and so expecting that from the main plot, like, I mean, I knew that from the bounce. Like, this ain't about to be some movie just all about race. Like, that's not about to sell. I'm trying to see that shit, but that's the truth. But where I think the biggest missed opportunity was, and they could have done it where they didn't have to necessarily make race the driving theme of the movie, but it could have been a significant portion. And this could have literally just been, I say the movie could have been a smidge longer. They could have given us 15 minutes of a nation divided because of Isaiah being locked up. People having mixed opinions,
awesome.
Because at this point, at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a driving point is that now there's a museum that talks specifically about his history, how it was erased, how these black men were experimented on, and all this awful shit happened. That is the perfect backdrop for a commentary on just, the awful things that our government has done. What does it mean to reconcile and take responsibility for effed up things? Which, by the way, that is the theme of the movie, which I actually like that theme of taking responsibility, for what you've done. They drove that theme home with Harrison Ford's character, Ross. That could have easily have been like a B plot where you have a similar parallel over Isaiah's locked up, it's a nation divided, are there riots, are there protests? Are there protesters at the White House because people don't believe Isaiah Bradley is guilty and all that? And maybe that interferes with the press conference. And it's now you got him still hulking out and you still get that same Act 3 breakdown. But now is he attacking protesters? Is he attacking counter protesters? Like, that could have been I think an easy way to still show how race is important in this story, because Harrison Ford's character, I'm not trying to say, I don't want to just be the guy on the podcast proposing my little casual rewrite, but like, you could have, because I'm not that guy.
I'm gonna do it anyway.
But I'm saying, but you could have, you could have leaned into this idea that Isaiah Bradley, who we've established had these very awful things happen that has now recently become light, be a dividing thing amongst the American people. Now his Harrison Ford character Ross has got to deal with this summit for the resource thing, but because he's a lying piece of shit and was manipulating your boy in the past, like, because again, he knew that Isaiah was innocent. So now it becomes even more complicated which that was a point in the movie too, of Sam was like, yo, Ross knows he's innocent, but he ain't gonna do shit about it. Like, they could have leaned more into that as a conflict with them, a racial element, and then draw in public opinion of people just in the Marvel world being like, yo, man, free my guy Isaiah, and other folks saying, no, he tried to kill the president, don't free him, and hey, your country's tearing itself apart because of ultimately your lies, Mr. President, and Sam got a personal stake because that's his mentor who's been through this shit. Like, that's a way more, I think those were relatively easy opportunities I think they missed, and I think that ties back to your OG point, Brian, of like, the things this movie could have corrected, I don't think were the hardest fixes.
Yeah,
but
totally.
I think the movie, like I said, the people behind this movie, whether it's Disney, somewhere to higher ups, never really had faith in it to begin with. And so they were kind of coming out the gates already a little bit handicapped because they just weren't going to be allowed. Like, if your movie doesn't let you, if the movie marketing spoils the biggest twist of your movie, that's not a fault of the writing. Like, you could be the best writer and put together the best movie, but if they just spoil all the good shit for marketing purposes, what do you do about that? You know, and that's you know, you get into real chicken egg territory, but like, it's unfortunate that this movie kind of had so much working against it, no matter what the actual people behind, you know, making the movie would have done. Very disappointing.
And now imagine you take Savon's rewrite, right, which is just, you know, just a little reshuffling, adding the discord, and then it turns out that the leader is the one pulling all the strings and sowing discord in America and deliberately, you know,
he targeted
populace.
Isaiah, right? Because Isaiah would be controversial or something.
So he's the real life, or he's the Marvel version of the Facebook algorithm, and
he's Putin.
The Twitter algorithm.
Yeah. Or Zola in Winter Soldier, like, he was the same thing, right? Zola was just a computer algorithm manipulating and putting together the master plan. These movies aren't that different from certain story beats when you start to look more closely, but that's a different conversation.
Let's put those magnifying glasses away.
My buddy Albert was like, we've seen mind control before. We've seen shield fights before. We've seen like all this stuff, like mass destruction. He's
After
like,
30
nothing
movies,
new.
it's hard.
Nothing new in
it's
this
hard.
movie. And I was like, it doesn't have to be new every time, but yeah.
That's part of the genre. It's called.
It's just got to be executed well, right?
Yeah, for sure. All right. That pretty much wraps it up. At the end of the day, how are you rating this movie, grading this movie? I know you guys might have convinced me to like Savon said, deduct a point. I'm probably at something like 7.5 out of 10.
Wow.
I liked it. I don't know.
After you deducted a point?
I know. I still enjoyed it.
Whoa.
It wasn't the best movie I've ever seen. I don't need to see it 20 times, but I would rewatch it again in 6 months to a year. I don't know. I like Sam Wilson. I like how he fights. I like I like Harrison Ford. So it was.
What tier
enjoyable.
of MCU content?
Like, what else would I put it with? I don't know.
Okay, it's better than Love and Thunder. It's better than Ant-Man. It's better than.
It's on the tier of Ant-Man. I feel like Ant-Man is enjoyable.
No,
Ant-Man 1.
Wait, the original Ant-Man.
No, which Ant-Man are we talking about?
Yeah,
Ant-Man 1 and Ant-Man 2. Oh, you're talking about Quantumania?
Sorry, I'm talking recent.
Quantumania.
I'm talking recent. Like, it's better than Love and Thunder. Better than Quantumania.
It's like maybe Shang-Chi level. I don't know. Like, I enjoy Shang-Chi too.
No, I don't.
Nah, Shang-Chi is a better movie.
I don't know.
Shang-Chi to me was like a A- B+ movie.
Okay. No, this is not that. This is not quite that level. But I still enjoyed it. I don't really have any like major complaints. I think they could have done it differently. It could have been a different movie. It could have been better, but I'm still glad I saw it. I'm glad they made it. Not mad at it. That's where I'm at. Brian, what are you rating this?
I'm at like a 58 Red
58?
Hulk chest hairs out of 100.
There's a lot of chest hairs.
Something
It's
like that.
also an F.
Also, I realized that he's red because this came out on Valentine's Day, right? Like, I think that's the tie-in.
Is that the tie-in?
That's why he's red.
That's
Oh,
a
okay.
tie-in. Whoever came up with the idea deserves to be
Hallmark.
dragged out into the back and hit in the head with a pipe.
All right, Sav, 58 out of 100 for Brian. What are you going with on this?
This is
one?
rare. I got the same score as you, 7.5.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I felt. To me, again, if the marketing didn't screw over all the Hulk stuff, this movie would have
it
been
did,
like this
so.
movie would have been a very much a B.
You always say if my
just
mama
a
would have
B.
been a bicycle.
Yeah, but it is good to differentiate between what's a flaw of the movie versus like the business stuff around it. Like, I think
All right.
because imagine if you just watch this at home, no context or something. you'd probably feel a little differently if you followed a lot of the hype and trailers and stuff too. So like that's also something to keep in mind if you watch this in
but
a
the
vacuum.
character's not existing for a reason. Like what was the security agent, the Israeli one, and
Sabra.
and then the not social security, what the fuck are they called,
Secret Service.
Like she didn't need to exist. She didn't play any role in any of the battles.
I mean, they just rewrote.
Did
they had
Betty
a whole,
really need to exist in this
Betty?
either?
Well,
right?
Betty,
I'm glad they didn't bring her at the
she-
end. I'm glad they didn't bring her at
Does
the
she?
end because Kendall made a good point of like they having her come in at the end is like a little bit of an epilogue for his character is about as much as I would have been open to her being in the movie. Anything more than that, and I would have been like, "Yo, man, what are you doing here? Get the fuck on."
Oh, really?
Because she
I
would
thought
have just
that
been
provided the reason that would have helped provide more reasons like why he was coming around, right? Like that's why he justified trying to be a better person and be a better president and leader and yada 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 yada. It was all because of her. Yeah,
but if she would have came in and saved the day, I would have took away even more from Sam. And it's like, nah. And I even like that they tried to acknowledge, hey, hold on, this is where Betty would be. And he's like, man, I ain't trying to hear that shit. And he's like, all right, bet. All right, let's fight. Like, I think even the writers are like, we're not about to just do the classic loved one of the Hulk comes in and talks him down. Which
I think
no,
I thought she should have been in other parts, like showing their disagreements and like how broken their relationship
no.
was.
He gets the best version. No contact. You get the real show up with a dysfunctional relationship. Dysfunctional families don't talk on the phone and argue. They just don't talk. Got ghosted. People say, reached out to your daughter. She ain't saying, like, dang, bro, you getting from the middleman. Hey, bro, she ain't trying to talk to you, pimp. Like, that's a real tone. That's probably one of the more realistic parts of the movie.
Real.
That's a broken relationship.
Fair enough. All right, so that's where we're at. 7.5 for me and Sav. 58 out of 100 for Brian. It doesn't sound like it's a movie you should go see based on those ratings, but I still think you should go see it. It's fun. And well, we got more to look forward to. We got Daredevil coming in a few weeks. We're probably going to take about a week off and then come back. Invincible is going to be finishing up here. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man just wrapped up their first season. Really interesting twist came at the end of that one. So I don't think we're going to come back and revisit that one, but I think I'll give it a little push for you guys to go see that. I think it's worth it. Fun show, I think is how I describe it. And then I think Last of Us is coming pretty soon as well.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. Oh, no, sorry. Andor is coming pretty soon. Maybe in like 2 months, something like that. So there are things on deck for us to go watch. All right, friends, we're out of here. See you later. Bye-bye.
Incredible!